Hi, it's Bobbie from Bobbie's Baking Blog, and today I'm going to show you how to brush embroider a poinsettia and do a very bobbleless bow for a sugar cookie card. And you could write joy. I think that's all that would fit on this one is joy. But you could write anything you wanted and make your poinsettia smaller if you wanted to. Alright, so let's begin doing our brush embroidery poinsettia. And what do we need? We need a brush, and I like this wonderful, it's a gel brush with a dot back, which I use to transfer my design on. I just use this little back here, and that we offer at Bobbie's shop. We need two number 2 PME tips, one bag full of, this is Moss Green by Wilton, and one bag filled with Vine Green by Squires. And the reason I'm using the Vine Green rather than white is because when you look at a poinsettia, it's not stark white when they're white, and so the Vine Green takes that starkness away. And I've also seen kind of green tinged. I've seen yellow ones too, by the way. So let's begin, and you're going to start with your back petals. And you just kind of want to do a little zigzag motion with your tip. And we're working with an off-peak consistency for our brush embroidery. And I just use my finger to take the excess water out. You want a very lightly dampened brush, and you're going to bring in that brush embroidery. I have shown you this technique before when we did our 1920 Great Gatsby clock, and there's a video on that, but we only used one color, and I did talk about doing tone on tone. So I'm going to show you, we're not going to do tone on tone, but we are going to do 2 colors. I want to go with the Moss Green, I got the wrong one. And you always want to start with your back petals first. I like to do 1 or 2 petals at a time so that my royal icing does not dry out. I also have a dampened paper towel in case my tip gets a little clogged or dirty, and I can wipe it. I'm noticing that my line is just a little bit too thin, so I'm going to thicken him up before he gets too hard, and it'll be noticeable that I added in more of a line. I want the moss green to be a little bit deeper in or thicker than the vine green, because your brats, when they're green, at least the dark green, are quite heavy. In fact, poinsettias themselves are quite heavy. I have a tutorial on doing sugar poinsettias, and I go into talking about that. The odd thing about a poinsettia is that all of the leaves, there are no petals, are brats, and the flower is those centers, the little teeny yellow and red centers. I'm just going to pipe them with my vine green color and then color them with an antique gold in the center. And I know you saw the other cookie. The bow is airbrushed with just a gold, and then I have a shell border that I went ahead and colored with old gold. I could not find a gold that actually matched the airbrush gold. So, and I didn't really want to use the airbrush color on the border, So I went ahead and used an old gold and just went like with a darker, almost ombre effect with it. I have talked about this before. This is my PME holder, and it is to hold exactly what it's doing. It's to hold the piping bag so that the tips do not dry out. I know a lot of people will put a pin inside their piping tips or tubes. I don't recommend that, especially if you're working with a PME or any of the other European tubes, because you will end up hurting your tube and you won't ever be able to get, if you go to do any type of lambeth piping, you won't be able to get a nice straight line, especially in your zeros and ones. You'll have ruined them by scratching them. So I don't recommend doing that. The reason I am going with a number 2 instead of a number 3, which is what I normally go with when I'm doing brush embroidery, is that there are petals inside here, and I'm going to be going back over in here, and I want to have enough room to do so. But if you want a thicker line, you can always use a number 3. And if you don't have PME tips, Wilton tips work just fine. So what I'm actually doing is I'm piping a zigzag of a line. And like I said, I'm doing the outer petals first. So these are all my outer petals. It looks like I skipped one, so we'll go back and get him. And then I'm taking the brush, and you do not want to draw that brush all the way to your back. You just want to go in to as far as you can go without actually cutting the very back here. You still want to have that line so that people can see that you are making a flower. And then just kind of, I'll show you again right on this one since I didn't quite get this whole thing. Well, I'll be showing you on the hoe cookie. But you just want to come in and bring your dampened brush, and like I said, I wring it out with my finger. You can use a paper towel to wipe it on. You want it to be almost dry, barely wet. If it's too wet, because royal icing is made with powdered sugar, and obviously if you put too much water in powdered sugar, you'll just have a mess. So you just want it to be lightly dampened, and then you're going to go in with your brush and draw it, literally just draw it out. And you don't have to be an expert piper to do this. This isn't something that you have to be completely skilled on. You don't even have to completely stay in your lines. And if you are really good at freehanding, you could probably not even transfer a pattern over to your cookie or your fondant. And this can be done on the side and the top of a cake or a cupcake. But the important thing is that you just want to draw it in. And you can bring it in as far as you want. So like that one's brought in a little bit more than some of the others. Or you can just bring it in a little bit. And the reason I brought it in lighter here is because there's going to be more petals, as I said, over through here. So now we're going to go into some of these inside petals. And for these, I will be only using the vine green. So we're going to go here and bring in this guy. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in this guy at the same time. He's kind of an inside and an outside petal. And I just noticed there was an outside petal I didn't get. I'm going to show you what to do if that happens. You're going to want to wait a little bit. Like by the time I get done with this, I can go grab him. The most important thing to remember when you're doing this is that the icing needs to be pretty freshly piped. If it dries on you, you won't be able to bring it out. It'll just be dry, like right here. See, it's not going to go anywhere. So you really want it to stay pretty wet. You want to do it right after you have piped it. So here's one that is kind of an outside petal that I didn't, well, he's almost an outside inside petal, I guess. But I should have gotten him first. So I'm going to go in, and this is what I mean, like, you don't have to be completely perfect. That top is a little bit pointy, I'll just take it down. And just make sure that you don't hit the petal next to it that you just did, because you don't want to ruin all your work. That's why I love this brush. It just kind of gets right in there. I've got a lot of control with it. And I turn my cookie as I go, so I can get into every little nook and cranny. And I can tell while I'm doing this, like this guy, he's not completely dry. I mean, if I wanted to, I could probably squash him. But he's too dry for me to fix. So if you find that you don't like something, or you don't like the way it looks, the best way to fix it is when it's wet. If it's already dry, just let it go. No one will really notice. Brush embroidery is one of the most forgiving type of cake decorating out there. It's beautiful, it's fun, and you don't have to be an expert piper to do it. So as you can see, I'm just drawing in the icing. I'm going to talk a little bit. I know that you always see me working on fondant and not a royal icing covered cookie. You would do the exact same thing. The only difference would be is that you would use a top coat or an outline consistency. If you're going to outline, you're going to outline and then flood your cookie. And you're going to wait until that cookie is 100% dry, like overnight dry. And then you would do the exact same thing. Instead of transferring the design in the way that I did with my dot tool, you would use a scriber tool and just scratch it in. And what I did for my design, because you do have to worry a little bit about copyright, I don't want to get anybody in trouble with copyright, I just drew a poinsettia on a piece of parchment, or not parchment, tracing paper, and then transferred it over. So this is my original design. It's drawn in a number 2B pencil, and since pencils are not made of lead, they're made of graphite, they're completely safe. So it's okay to transfer them over onto your cake or your cookie or whatever you're using. And now all I'm doing is adding some dots for the center. And that's it. That's your poinsettia.